Hello, everyone. I think we should get this meeting underway so we have enough time for everything else. Just as last time, we'd like to use the same etiquette around the chat feature. I think it's really awesome to see everyone appreciate announcements or pieces of gratitude or openers. That stuff is awesome, but again, anything else, I prefer that everyone does not use the chat and to only use it in those specific moments, or in this meeting's instance, to message Vince if you'd want to say anything during gratitude or accountability. So to start off the meeting, we have Makai Yanez as the opener.
Thank you. For all is here, here's the red shoes and walking blues, pens, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. So I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Walk with me, Susie, through the park and by the tree. We can rest upon the ground and look at all the bugs we found. Safely walk to school without a sound. Safely walk to school without a sound. Here we are, no one else. We walk to school all by ourselves. There's dirt upon our uniforms from chasing all the ants and worms. We clean up and now it's time to learn. We clean up and now it's time to learn. Numbers, letters, learn to spell, nouns in books and show and tell. Playtime, we will throw the ball back to class through the hall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. We don't notice any time pass. We don't notice anything. We sit side by side in every class. Teacher thinks that I sound funny, but she likes the way you sing. Tonight I'll dream while in my bed, when silly thoughts run through my head about the bugs and alphabet. And when I wake tomorrow, I'll bet you and I will walk together again. So I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
Thank you, Makai, for that beautiful lick, beautiful piece of music right there. For the next senior speaker, determined but collected. When you see her, she appears to be calm and observant, acting deliberately with no visible tension. But inside, she harbors passionate fervor and relentless, intense dedication to her life's work. I think I speak for all of us when I say that you inspire us to pursue our crafts with, as Iggy Pop says, a true lust for life. Talented musician and a phenomenally skilled Nordic skier, only time and the world stage can tell us what Kate Oldham has the potential to be.
Okay. Thank you, Wyatt. Today I'm going to tell you all about bees. Before I started writing the speech, I actually knew nothing about bees, besides the fact that when they sting you, it hurts in a rude manner that is disproportionate to their size. Not to mention the swelling and unbearable itching that comes in the hours after. But that was more than enough to get me started. One of the few memories I have from Wilderness was the abundance of bees that seemed to exist only in the areas we were doing our service projects. One day as we were walking through the site, The ranger helping us with the project warned us not to run through any bushes or other vegetation on the ground. Promptly after hearing this, one of the freshman boys I remember so fondly ran through a bush, sending a swarm of angry insects into the trail in front of me while he escaped unscathed. Meanwhile, I was getting stung left and right, leaving the scene with several searing wounds on each ankle. And I can assure you that Dan Pitts's snide remark to maybe find some mud or something didn't help. The next few nights, I barely slept as the 2 cankles filling the bottom of my sleeping bag itched and bled through my socks. Lucky for me, this memorable event happened at the beginning of the trip, and there was still time to make a shift in a positive direction. That shift happened on my solo, where I had a much needed break from the group and a chance to sit alone for 24 hours. I realized that other people's actions were completely out of my control. And while I did happen to suffer at the hand of somebody else's ignorance, it was time to focus on myself and what I could control. You do you, I told myself, which turned out to be something I would remind myself for the next 4 years. It became a mantra in my Nordic training, schoolwork, and even in my daily interactions. To this day, it reminds me that I can only control my actions and my mindset. This understanding, rather than creating separation from others, allowed me to connect in a more discerning way with various communities, whether it be at home, school, or in the Nordic world. A hive can't survive without the relentless work of female bees who are responsible for feeding, housing, and protecting the queen. Without female bees, the colony would crumble. Similar to a colony of bees, I'm lucky to live a life full of female role models, all feeding each other inspiration and holding each other accountable at home, training, in school, and everything in between. I'm lucky to have some important male role models as well, but here I wanted to be a little more cautious in drawing a comparison to male bees. Male bees are called drones, and they serve no other purpose than to create more bees. They can't feed themselves, forage, protect themselves or their hive, provide places to live, or serve the queen in any other way than to produce more bees, after which most of them promptly die anyways. Being a human, I wanted to acknowledge the unwavering support I've had from my male teachers, coaches, mentors, and friends who have been there from the start. And I probably should have ended my bee metaphor a bit earlier, but I didn't, for no reason other than to compare Dan Pitts to a male bee in just one small bit of retribution for his uncalled for sass on wilderness. So bear with me a bit longer. When I began my time at CRMS, it became apparent that the community was a priority. And I know I'll be leaving the school with meaningful, lifelong connections to teachers, parents, friends, and many other members of our hive. Besides serving the queen, a worker bee's job is to collect nectar. At the end of the day, the nectar they bring back to the hive is made into precious honey that remains in the hive for the rest of the bees to feed upon. This honey is nutrient rich and serves as fuel during the time when food is scarce and nectar isn't readily available. Like a hive, members of the CRMS community put themselves out into the world to experience things, learn from others, or practice various skills, all of which they bring back to the hive to share with the rest of us in a condensed and digestible form. In doing so, they are constantly enriching our hive with what they feel will feed our bodies and minds. The time I've spent in the CRMS hive is something I'll always be grateful for. I will always remember the time that Ko, Mark, Ao, and many others spent making all school meetings meaningful. I will remember the time my teachers spent over the years helping me make up tests and projects after missing weeks and weeks of school for ski races. And I will remember the way my friends and classmates shared their time with me to help me catch up on other missed material. A bee's instinct is to sting when it feels threatened. When the stinger goes into your skin, it detaches from the animal and releases a scent that signals distress to other bees, who then unite against the predator. During my time here, and particularly during the time of the coronavirus, the CRMS hive has shown similar unity. Yet rather than an aggressive and self-destructive defense mechanism, people have been generous, supportive, active, and cherished time with their loved ones more than ever before. This time of forced physical distance has only reinforced my connection to CRMS and my confidence that our hive is strong enough to transcend any distance, forced or otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, for that wonderful speech. As we move forward into accountability and gratitude, I want everyone to think along the topics that Kate brought up of taking care of yourself first, especially in a time of crisis such as this. I think it is so incredibly important for everyone to check in with themselves and make sure that they're all right. But then once you find that time of self-reflection, reach out to others and see if they're doing just as well as you. There's a phrase I always use if you've been on a trip with me, it's self-care is group care. So going into gratitude and accountability, I want to center it around how you can take better care of yourself and how we can take better care of others. Again, send your gratitudes, accountabilities to Vince.
I have two things so far. One thing from Zach. He says, I'd like to hold myself accountable to balance self-care and group care in these difficult and stressful times. Thank you, Zach. And from Lexi, don't want to speak, but thank you to all the faculty, Wyatt, Vince, and Jeff for working hard to make our end of the year special for us seniors. You're welcome. I love you, seniors. I love my class.
I'll just share a gratitude. I have really been floored and impressed at the degree to which all the students in my biology and geology classes have maintained their positivity, inquisitiveness, and enthusiasm, and just continue to bring an A game. And I've just loved seeing how this digital platform has not squelched your passion. So thank you so much. And you've really made it fun and meaningful for me. So thank you again.
On that note, I want to thank KO and especially like all of my teachers, all of the faculty, like Lexi said, and we can't say it enough. Thank you guys so much for everything that you're doing to make this worth it. And especially William Brown and Dan, they've been super helpful. So thank you.
Dave Meyer. Don't need to speak, but a big thanks to Jack, Vince, and Eli for connecting with my family during quarantine. Thanks to my students, particularly a push for being fully engaged and bringing enthusiasm to learning. George sent this to chat so you can all read it, but I'm going to read it anyways. And it says, thanks to my music students for doing so well with our new curriculum. And from Amy, I don't need to speak, but thank you to everyone who have sent me photos and videos to use on social media and in the newsletter. Keep them coming. I'm just going to repeat something that Julie said on chat. Happy birthday to Gellick. And Jason. It was Jason's birthday, and I think it was also Sophia's birthday, or some point, and Boden's birthday. Everyone's having birthdays, so let's all celebrate them and greet them.
Stop.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for announcements. Those of you who have announcements, you have been promoted to co-host status, which means that we are not going to unmute you, but you have the power to unmute yourself. This will fix some issues we were having last week, and we will start with Daryl.
All right. Thanks, Nat. Good to see everybody, almost everybody. Everybody can fit on my screen. I've had the distinct pleasure of spending some time over in base camp, sorting through tarps and stoves and all that good gear that we used to go out on adventures. Found some really special stuff. Found, I don't know if the Deso Gray group was missing a box of food that they forgot to put away. I found that. I found a couple other things too, but that got me thinking about spring and all the good things we have left going on in our community this spring, even from a distance, and in particular thinking about next summer and late summer in particular, and wilderness assistance. So I'm going to share this. This is predominantly oriented towards juniors, but certainly underclassmen, you guys should be thinking about this, as this will be something that you can look forward to down the road. But for our juniors, wilderness assistant applications are going to be emailed out to you after this meeting. And I would invite you to think about applying. We will be spending some time looking at those applications with wilderness leaders, your advisors, as well as last year's wilderness assistants and other folks in the outdoor program, and making selections for 5 or 6 wilderness assistants, as well as 2 alternates. The applications are due April 17th. That's a Friday. And we'll let you know a couple weeks after that. The way it's going to work is if you are a junior and you are interested, I think you might be interested in applying to be a wilderness assistant, you need to talk with your advisor. That's the way the whole process starts. So have a conversation with your advisor, and then your advisor will nominate you. And once they've nominated you, advisors, if a student talks to you, you are going to nominate them. And you'll get an application and you'll have time to fill out that application. It's not super in-depth, but it does require a little thoughtfulness on your part. And then you'll submit that. And advisors, you guys will also, when you submit that nomination, that will also go into the file for the student. So pretty excited that even though we have this temporary kind of situation we're dealing here with distance learning, that out there somewhere in the distance future, we're going to be getting back to normal, and we look forward to that. Maybe normal's not right, but heading back towards normal, and whatever the new reality will be, we will be getting back out and about and enjoying the outdoors. And one of the most important ways that we can do that is the way we start off and welcome new people into our community, and that involves you guys, juniors in particular. So please give that some thought. If you have questions, you can of course reach out to me. And if you're interested, connect with your advisors. Thanks so much.
All right, next up for announcements, we have Sonia.
She says no.
No, I don't think
she's
I-
confused.
Okay, KO told me you have an announcement.
Oh wait, I'll make an announcement. On behalf of Daryl, what he was just speaking about, both Sonia and I were WAVs. It's such an amazing opportunity, and if you're really into the whole outdoor leadership thing, or maybe even if you aren't but think you could be, definitely consider being a WAV. I know I had an outstanding time.
It was a
Sonia
lot
did
of
as well.
fun.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do it.
All right. And then next up is Fiona.
I do actually have an announcement. So last Saturday, a few people who have been at the GSA lunch tables did a Zoom call together, and it was really fun. So first off, thanks to you guys for coming. Second of all, we're gonna do another one next Saturday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And the main goal of this will be to discuss a virtual Pride Parade, because the Pride Parade, the Carbondale Pride Parade was supposed to be in May, but they're gonna try and do a virtual one on May 1st. So we're gonna talk about possible ways that we could be involved in it. So if you have any ideas or wanna be involved somehow, come and we'll talk about that. Or if you're just bored on a Saturday, show up. It's my Zoom link, which should be in contacts of CRMS, but I'll also send out an email, and there'll be a text to those of you on the text chain. Yeah, it was fun last time, so come join us again. Thank you.
I'm sure my mic's on. For someone like me, who is so introverted and reserved, it was kind of amazing to be in the presence of someone so outgoing, so exuberant, so confident, and so in love with the world on my first ever CRMS trip. From Wilderness our sophomore year all the way to Geopol and Senior English right now, I've been a witness to a personality that just doesn't seem to run out of grace and kindness or a sense of wonder and excitement. Our world may have dimmed since sophomore year, but the next speaker's light certainly has not. And that's just what we need right now. So please welcome our next speaker, Ada Keenan.
Thank you, Vince. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ada, and I'm a 3-year senior. I think the next thing you should know about me is that I'm pretty much in a constant state of an identity crisis, and I have been for a while. Sophomore year, coming into the school year, I remember thinking about who I was and who I wanted to be, and how I would come across to this new community. That year, in Dave's class, we looked at our lives and what gives them meaning. Being in that class just worsened my obsession with finding out what this whole life thing is and who I want to be in it. The idea of identity was glued in my head. What I've gotten so far from these countless hours of thinking about my soul and body is that I'm a work in progress, working on being the person I want to be. I've changed so much throughout high school, and for the most part, I'm grateful. Not only do I look 100 times better, but I'm also a much kinder person. Changing my thinking from judgmental to empathetic hasn't been easy because, as Ao says, I have a very big heart filled with emotions, but some of these can be negative. This is something I have been working on, including being kinder to myself and my body. Labels are something that has challenged and will continue to challenge me on my journey. We all get labeled all the time in society. In middle school, my main labels were short, crazy, and hippie. As I moved into high school and parts of the real world, my labels changed with me. It's not the word itself that affects me, but the preconceived judgments that comes with the label. For example, if I told you I was a Trump supporter, your mind would automatically create judgments about me. I'm not, but my point is that our minds associate labels with what we think we know and we jump to conclusions. But really, every person has their own story. I try not to let these labels stick to me and define me, but every once in a while one does. The first label I would say stuck is mermaid. When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with mermaids. Not only mermaids, but just water. If there was enough water to swim in it, I already had. This obsession might have been fostered from my early exposure to the river. When I was 8 months old, I went on my first river trip of many. On these river trips, I would be in the river as much as possible, being my mermaid self. I rarely wore shoes, and if I did, they were Crocs or Chacos. I'm so thankful for that exposure and connection to the natural world. As life got busier, I had to be my mermaid self at the Hotchkiss pool instead. I can't remember when my trips to the pool started or when they ended, but I do remember going every day for many summers when I was younger. The pool is where I kept my identity of a mermaid alive, and I made a lot of new friends. At CRMS, I've swum in the pond in the spring and fall. For a while, we would swim in the river in the winter. I've also soaked in the ditch on many occasions. Last year, around this time, there was a rainstorm during a formal dinner, and I splashed my way, puddle from puddle, back to the North Dorm. For 2 summers, I have traveled to Martha's Vineyard to go live and work on a boat, the Shenandoah. As a mermaid, clearly the ocean is my favorite place to be and somewhere I feel at peace. It was here on the vineyard that I also took the label of a sailor. My dad's family came here by tall ship, as many of your families most likely did. If you don't know what a tall ship is, you should look it up because they're a really important piece of our history and one of the most environmentally friendly ways of travel, and super beautiful. But for now, just picture a big pirate ship. I spend my summers hanging out with little kids and getting roasted by my coworkers, but also learning and growing so much as a person. The Shenandoah was and still is my life for 3 months a year. When we weren't on the boat, we're in a rundown sail shed where we spend many hours talking about the morality of the death penalty or singing sea shanties. I can't even rightfully describe the people I work with. Honestly, I've laughed harder with them than almost anyone else. The first person I met when I got there was Emma, a crew member on the other tall ship, the Alabama. And little did I know the impact she'd have on my life. Emma has since become one of my best friends. She continues to teach me so much about who I am and who I want to be. I aspire to be as badass as her. Most of all, she showed me how strong I can be. Sam, the first mate, yelled at me a lot the first season, and I was very scared of him, though later we became very good friends. I'm so grateful for the tough love because I grew the most when he was yelling at me and learned the skill of listening and working hard. Rob, the second mate, took me under his wing in a sense and taught me all sorts of interesting and important things. But really what Rob taught me is to laugh at myself, mostly because he made a lot of jokes about me, but it helped me realize that if you let go a little bit, you can live so much brighter and free. Mikey was really my first friend on the boat. We would sit on deck talking and drawing. Mikey reminded me that it's okay to be vulnerable and actually really important to be open. Cody has given me more hugs than I can account for, which I'm eternally grateful because as we're all experiencing, it's really hard to go a long time without a hug, and it's actually bad for you. Really, Cody became one of my best friends and reminds me all the time to keep my head up because the world is beautiful. I've spent 2 summers with these amazing people, and hopefully I will get 1 more summer to swim in the bioluminescence and play magic below deck. I have a million stories I could tell you about my time as a sailor on the Shenandoah, but I'll keep it to one, the story of how I got the label cook. Now, to have the story make sense, I'm gonna have to teach you guys some boat lingo. The galley is the kitchen, but don't be fooled by the word kitchen. It's more like a leaky wooden box that comfortably fits 1 person. The stove is a coal fire stove, which means it's very hard to cook on and super hot and sometimes smoky. There's also no refrigeration. So how we keep things good for the week is keeping them in the reefers, which are ice box that keeps things refrigerated. Quite different than Colorado's meaning of reefer. Anyways, I've spent many hours in the galley, washing dishes in the pump sink and with boiling water, or even just hanging out with the cook. The cook gets 1 crew member to help them for the week in the galley, and then we rotate through. Being the last to arrive last summer, I was the first in the galley with the new cook, Sherry. Sherry told me the way she liked things done, and I tried my best to be as helpful as I could. Right off the bat, Sherry and I became great friends, and she taught me a lot about cooking and being a strong female in this male-dominated industry of sailing. My week as her galley slave went by quickly, but I still tried to help anywhere I could. One day when we were sailing, I heard Sam yell to the foredeck, the front of the boat, "Sherry chopped off her finger," and from there on, it was a little bit of a blur. All of a sudden, I was in the galley looking for the tip of her finger in the reefer as she sat in the cabin across from the galley, holding her hand, being almost completely silent. I asked her how I could help, and then I jumped into making dinner for 30 kids and my beloved crew and captain. Sam asked me if I could handle being the cook for the rest of the week. It was Monday. I accepted hesitantly. I only had 2 more weeks on the boat before I had to return to Colorado, and I spent them in the galley. My normal way of life on the boat had been shaken. Now I would wake up at 5 a.m. to start cooking breakfast instead of waking up at 7 to get a cup of coffee from Sherry. Now I would be responsible for getting food on the table at the right time instead of coming 5 minutes after dinner to get food. Now I would spend most of my day in the galley instead of on deck or in the ocean. But most importantly, now I had to cook for Captain Bob Douglas. Captain Bob founded the Black Dog and has lived a crazier life than anyone I know. He has been running the Shenandoah for 55 years, and I had to cook for him now. Though he's in his 80s, he is one of the most passionate, intelligent, and all-around amazing men I've ever met. On the last night I was there, I finished cooking dinner and sat up on deck for a little time to decompress. Cap came up to me and told me how good of a job I did and gave me a hug. That was one of the most meaningful experiences I've had in my short 17 years of life. Okay, back to who I am and labels and who I want to be. Over the years, I've been labeled a million different things. Some are good, like outgoing or cute, but I've also been labeled many more words I definitely should not say in front of the whole school. But it would be hypocritical of me to tell you to never judge, to be kind to everyone, because I too judge and label. Instead, I will humbly tell you to work on yourself and who you want to be. I will tell you that I'm working on myself. I'll tell you that I tell the people I love that I love them, and I invite you to do the same. I will tell you that I'm trying to see the world through your eyes and not judge you. I will tell you to live in this beautiful world with your head up and toes in the dirt. Thank you guys. I love you all. Have a good evening.
Raj.
Raj.
Yeah, okay. All right. First of all, thank you to my exceptionally rad birthday twin Ellie. You were so much fun to hang out with on bike team and Nordic team. I look forward to the next 2 years of you giving me crap for not showing up to 6:30 strength session. As soon as Ellie gave me the barrage, I was very stoked. But then I realized something. I now had to write a speech and give it to someone. No wonder most people hesitate to even consider giving a freshman boy the barrage. Anyway, I immediately started contemplating who should be the next to receive the award, with its virtual, heavy burden, actual cold chain, and journal. I decided it would have to be somebody that I looked up to, respected, and admired. I am happy that I got to know this person over 2 teams and his fall trip. And so I decided it would only make sense for this someone with a humble attitude and a very successful Nordic season to receive this award. This person is not arrogant despite her stellar performances. She raced to second place finishes in both the skate and classic state races, but she was not satisfied with the 2 podiums from what I could tell. She was 2 seconds off first place, and she may be happy about it now, but at the time, from what I could tell, she wasn't very stoked. And I know this race had and will result in her to train harder and push her limits next season. She also pushes her teammates on the bike team and Nordic team to be better by encouraging instead of being critical. She may not realize how helpful and supportive her ski tips and advice were to me and her teammates, but that's how supportive and caring she is. I don't even think she realizes when she gives me tips half the time. She has, from what I can tell, a very relaxed vibe and energy. She brings the polar opposite to a race, springing forward from the start like an arrow from a bow, laying it all out on the field, but still there to encourage you from the start for your start hours later. This week's barrage is happily awarded to the fastest and 100% supportive and dedicated person I know, Lola Villafranco.
Thank you, Tristan. You're the best.
Yay, Lola!
Lola got the barrage. This is amazing. Woo! Congrats. Yeah.
Lola got the barrage.
Charlie says congrats too.
From
We twist to the left or the right?
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for the wonderful speeches. Have a lovely afternoon.
Take care. Have a good week.